Years ago, I began a journey to visit every country in the world, which is still ongoing, by the way, so make sure you're subscribed to see where I'm at. But a question I hear very often is, how many countries are there? Well, the answer is not as simple as it might seem.
Add it up.
Hi, everybody, foXnoMad here, and today I want to help you travel smarter by answering the question, how many countries are there? Well, the broad answer is it's a big, it depends, but there are a few specific numbers that we can count on based on who's counting. The simplest and most straightforward answer is to count the number of United Nations member states. Currently, there are 193 member states of the United Nations. Add to that 2 observer states, Palestine and Vatican City, and now you have 195, but you can already begin to see how these numbers can get muddled up based on who recognizes whom. In practice, UN member states can only be sovereign states and doesn't include nations such as Kosovo, for example. Another way to count the number of countries in the world is to use the International Olympic Committee list, the IOC list, which includes territories like Guam and de facto states like Taiwan. The number of countries recognized by the IOC is 206, a bit more than 195, and while there is a good deal of overlap between the UN and IOC lists, they both don't include places like Antarctica. Yes, it's not a country, but an entire continent, which should be worth something on any self-respecting travel list. To get into the UN, for example, a state or government has to apply, and one hurdle is that all of its 5 member states, China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America, won't veto the application. The world is a big place, and of course, borders are just imaginary lines on a map. In fact, you may have been to some countries that aren't on either of those 2 lists. But there are other, less formal lists which include places like the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which might not be an official country, but on the ground certainly behaves as one. Same thing goes for Puerto Rico. Tibet isn't its own nation, but certainly lines on a globe don't tell the whole story. When you travel to a place, you might feel a stark difference between cultures. Chamula in Mexico behaves like a separate entity. How about the self-proclaimed self-aware Islandia off the coast of Belize? Other times, culture doesn't tell the whole story. War, invasion, migration, all of those things can shift lines on a map. So how many countries there are changes with time and is based on who's counting and how. There's politics involved. It can be controversial. For many, though, 206 is a solid number. That's using the IOC list, which includes Taiwan and Kosovo for examples. Personally, for my travel list, I tend to lean on the IOC list because it's relatively stable and contains a widely recognized number of nations. But why keep a list at all? For me, it's a goal. It's a goalpost, it's something to aim toward, it's a target, and it's led me to places that I probably would have never thought to go in the first place. It can take me out of my comfort zone, but it's never solely been about the list. I go back to places, and I'm not in a rush to check off every country there is. I'm over 100 countries now and could have been done a long time ago, but ultimately my goal is to see the world, to see its natural diversity, to see its cultural heritage, to see as much of it as I can see, and that's just something that lines on a map can't really encompass. Now, whether or not you can see the entire world in a single lifetime is a story for another video. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one coming up. But for all of you who are watching, I'm curious, how do you count your travel list? Is it when you get a visa stamp in your passport? Do you use some other list? Do you use the United Nations list? Let me know down in the comments. I'll be reading and responding down there. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.